The Tower of London. Rising against the London skyline, it is one of England's most iconic landmarks. Yet, beyond its majestic walls lies a history steeped in blood. A place where royalty once ruled, prisoners begged for mercy, and executioners sharpened their blades. Built to intimidate and protect, the tower evolved into a symbol of fear, where those who entered often met a grim fate. Its walls have witnessed betrayal, torture, and the agony of countless condemned souls. This is no ordinary historical monument. It is a fortress of death. The Tower of London was built in 1078 by William the Conqueror, a fortress meant to project the power of the Norman monarchy. Over the centuries, it became more than a stronghold. By the late 12th century, it served as a royal prison for enemies of the crown, housing traitors, conspirators, and even queens. Its reputation was fearsome. To be sent to the tower was to face isolation, despair, and often death. It became a one-way ticket for many unfortunate souls, including Anne Boleyn, Guy Fawkes, and Lady Jane Grey, the 9 Days Queen. The tower's name alone was enough to strike terror into the hearts of those summoned to its gates. For some prisoners, hope flickered faintly in the form of pardons or exile. But for most, the journey ended on the execution scaffold. The axe and block were among the most frequently used tools of execution at the tower. The process, while considered dignified, was anything but. The condemned would kneel, placing their head on a wooden block. A skilled executioner was crucial. One clean strike could deliver a quick death. But if the executioner faltered, the ordeal became a nightmare. Anne Boleyn, the second wife of Henry VIII, met her fate here in 1536. As a queen, she was granted the unusual privilege of a French swordsman instead of the traditional axe. The execution was said to be swift, yet the emotional weight was immense. Her speech before her death was hauntingly calm, a reminder of her resilience even in the face of death. Others were not as fortunate. Margaret Pole, an elderly noblewoman, was hacked to death in a botched execution that required multiple blows. Her agonizing death left a lasting scar on the tower's history. For crimes of treason, the punishment was far more gruesome: hanging, drawing, and quartering. The process was as horrific as it was deliberate. First, the prisoner was hanged, but not to death. They were cut down while still alive, only to face the next stage of their punishment being drawn. This involved disembowelment, with their organs often burned in front of them. Finally, their body was quartered, the limbs separated and sent to different parts of the kingdom as a warning to others. Guy Fawkes, the infamous conspirator behind the gunpowder plot of 1605, was sentenced to this brutal fate. Although he managed to leap from the gallows and break his neck, sparing himself the worst, the gruesome punishment remained a dark chapter in the tower's history. The tower was not only a place of execution, but also a center for torture. The scavenger's daughter, a device designed to compress the prisoner's body into excruciating positions, was one of the most feared. Victims would be folded tightly, their chest pressed to their knees, causing immense pain and suffocation. The rack, another infamous tool, stretched prisoners' bodies, dislocating their joints and tearing muscles. This device was often used to extract confessions. Edmund Campion, a Jesuit priest, endured the rack and left a harrowing legacy of resistance and suffering. Other devices, such as manacles and thumbscrews, added to the tower's grim inventory. Each was a testament to the lengths authorities would go to break the will of their prisoners. While public executions were common in medieval England, Some were deemed too delicate for the public eye. Tower Green became the site of private executions, reserved for individuals of high status. Lady Jane Grey, the young queen who ruled for just 9 days, was executed here in 1554. Catherine Howard, another of Henry VIII's wives, met her end on Tower Green as well. The executioner's role was not a simple one. They were both feared and reviled, tasked with delivering death while ensuring it was as swift as possible. Yet not all executions went smoothly. A botched execution could lead to prolonged suffering, turning the executioner into a hated figure. The tools of their trade axes, swords, and ropes were carefully maintained. Executioners often wore masks to conceal their identities, protecting themselves from the wrath of the condemned and their families. Despite the gruesome nature of their work, executioners were an essential part of system. The Tower of London, with its foreboding walls and shadowed corridors, has witnessed some of the most dramatic and infamous executions in British history. These events not only shaped the course of the nation's past, but also left an indelible mark on its collective memory. Here are the Tower's most notable executions, where power, betrayal, and tragedy converged. Anne Boleyn, the second wife of Henry VIII, was one of the Tower's most famous victims. Once a queen who enchanted the king, her inability to produce a male heir sealed her fate. Accused of treason, adultery, and incest, charges widely believed to be fabricated, Anne was imprisoned within the Tower. Her final days were marked by dignity and resolve. On the morning of May 19, 1536, Anne was led to the scaffold on Tower Green. Unlike most executions, she was granted the unusual honor of being executed by a skilled French swordsman rather than the traditional axe. This choice was made by the king to ensure a swift death. At just 16 years old, Lady Jane Grey was thrust onto the throne in a political coup, becoming England's queen for a mere 9 days. Her reign was short-lived, as Mary Thigh, known as Bloody Mary, reclaimed her right to the throne. Jane was imprisoned in the Tower, a pawn in a game of power she never sought to play. Despite her youth, her strength of character shone through during her captivity. On February 12, 1554, Jane was led to Tower Green for her execution. Sir Thomas More, a scholar, statesman, and devout Catholic, was a man of principle. When Henry VIII declared himself the supreme head of the Church of England, More refused to recognize the king's authority over the Pope. His steadfast defiance led to his imprisonment and eventual execution. On July 6, 1535, More ascended the scaffold with unwavering resolve. The Countess of Salisbury, Margaret Pole, suffered one of the most gruesome and dramatic deaths in the Tower's history. Accused of treason for her family's opposition to Henry VIII, her trial was riddled with injustice. At 67 years old, Margaret was dragged to Tower Green. As she knelt for her execution, she refused to place her head on the block, declaring her innocence. The inexperienced executioner required multiple blows to complete the task, turning her death into a horrifying spectacle. Her death became a symbol of the cruelty and chaos of Henry VIII's reign. Guy Fawkes, infamous for his role in the gunpowder plot to blow up Parliament, was captured and brought to the Tower of London. He endured brutal torture on the rack, designed to extract a confession. His signature, once bold and clear, became barely legible under the strain. Fawkes was sentenced to be hanged, drawn, and quartered, a punishment reserved for traitors. However, on January 31st, 1606, as he was led to the gallows, he leaped from the scaffold, breaking his neck and sparing himself the agony of the full punishment. Catherine Howard, the fifth wife of Henry VIII, faced the same tragic fate as Anne Boleyn. Accused of adultery and treason, she was arrested and imprisoned in the Tower. Just a teenager when she married the king, Catherine's youthful indiscretions and enemies at court sealed her fate. The Tower of London stands as a testament to the turbulence of British history. Its stones have borne witness to ambition, betrayal, and tragedy, where the powerful and powerless alike met their end. These dramatic executions are not merely tales of the past. They are reminders of the human cost of power, the fragility of justice, and the enduring strength of those who faced death with dignity. The Tower, a fortress of history, preserves their stories haunting and eternal. Executions were more than punishments. They were spectacles. Crowds gathered to witness the condemned's final moments, a macabre form of entertainment. The executions served as both a deterrent and a display of the Crown's authority. But as time passed, public opinion shifted. The once accepted brutality of executions began to disgust the public. By the 19th century, attitudes toward punishment had changed, leading to the eventual abolition of public executions. The Tower of London's role as an execution site came to an end during World War II. The last person executed here was Joseph Jacobs, a German spy, in 1941. By then, the Tower's bloody history had given way to its role as a historical monument. Today, it stands as a reminder of England's turbulent past. Its stones echo with the cries of the condemned, a stark reminder of the cost of power and control. The Tower of London remains a symbol of both strength and fear. Its walls tell stories of betrayal, loyalty, and the brutal realities of medieval justice. As visitors walk through its corridors, they are reminded of the lives lost within its shadow. The Tower is not just a monument, it is a storyteller, preserving the memories of those who met their end in its embrace. As night falls, the Tower looms in the darkness, its silhouette a chilling reminder